All right, here we go. We got a quick and dirty live broadcast. I promised this yesterday. I want to talk about intermittent fasting and active midlife women. More specifically, intermittent fasting and women that are in the menopause spectrum and how intermittent fasting, menopause, and training sort of go together. I get this question a lot, and there's a lot of interest in intermittent fasting. Totally get it. Uh, and yesterday I posted on my social media that I was going to talk about this today at 5. It's 5:06. Sue me. I was going to talk about this today at 5. And sort of the challenge is that I know for a lot of women that are in midlife spectrum, taking the journey through menopause, that are active and training and running and hiking and cycling and all those things, and the percentage of that population that wants to change their body composition. Maybe they want to lose body fat, maybe they want to increase muscle, etc., etc. The concept of intermittent fasting seems very attractive, right? So for quite a few of these women, the entry point to intermittent fasting was fasted morning cardio, right? That was prominent over the last several decades as a methodology of burning more body fat, right? If you do fasted cardio, it'll burn all the burn all the fat because you have no blood sugars to burn out of your bloodstream, right? The idea was that if you had eaten and then you work out, all the workout did was burn the sugars in your bloodstream. First of all, a workout is not a fat loss methodology. Let's just start there. If that's your goal, that's actually a nutritional lifestyle intervention. There are quite a few things on the ladder of importance for fat loss before workout. Discussion for another time. Let's keep this thing in the road. But I know that's the entry point for a lot of the women that maybe have this question. So let's talk about intermittent fasting and active midlife menopausal journey women and the reason why I do not advise it. So if you don't know me, my name is Ren Jones. I'm a certified personal trainer through National Academy of Sports Medicine. I'm a certified corrective exercise specialist through the same organization, NASM. I'm certified as a level 1 and level 2 nutrition coach through Precision Nutrition. I've Girls Gone Strong. I've also got a menopause certification through Girls Gone Strong, a menopause certification through Med, and I've completed Dr. Stacy Sims' Menopause 2.0 course. I'm what you might call a menopause-informed personal trainer. Not a lot of men that do this, but unfortunately I lost my mother. I lost both sisters to lifestyle-related issues, so here I am doing the thing. But let's get into the meat of it. 3 practical reasons why I do not advise intermittent fasting to active midlife women. Read the line again. Active midlife women. What kind of midlife women? Active. Women that are training for events. Women that are training in a gym, just for strength training. Women that are doing cardio and high intensity interval training and sprint interval training and all the things. Women that are doing lots of things with their body. And I'm going to explain this through the lens of why it's not practical by citing what helps women in this stage of life in terms of their exercise. So the first thing we got to consider is protein. If you don't know, you probably do know, but if you don't know, protein's all the rage, particularly for women that are taking the journey through the menopause spectrum. You see it more and more online now, particularly social media. And the reason being is because there's some active differences in women's physiology as they go into the menopause spectrum. One of the first things that we know about perimenopause that can be detrimental is age-related muscle loss, sarcopenia. Now, this starts generally for men and women around age 30. It's not unusual. If left unattended, you're going to lose muscle over the course of time. But when women get into the perimenopausal phase of their menopause transition, which is technically the transition period, we know that the rate of muscle loss increases. They lose muscle more rapidly as they get into the perimenopausal phase of the menopause transition. So we've got initially a loss of muscle due to age, technically. Pretty much everybody over 30 starts to get into that age-related muscle loss, that sarcopenia. But then we know for midlife women, particularly midlife women that have entered into the perimenopausal phase, we've got a rapid increase in the rate of muscle loss. So protein becomes vitally important. Second thing that we know that involves protein in women's bodies through this time in their lives is that there's a little bit more difficulty in absorbing protein and uptaking protein to create new muscle. So all of a sudden, protein becomes a little bit more prevalent on that side of the equation because not only is it, if left unattended, not only are they losing muscle a little bit more rapidly, they're able to make muscle, but a little bit more slowly. So on both ends of this whole muscle equation, you got a foobar, right? On both ends of this muscle equation, everything's leading to a not good outcome. So it becomes, and then the third thing I want to talk about is insulin, right? There's a lot of onset of blood sugar dysregulation as estrogen starts to withdraw and or fluctuate. So it's really not uncommon for a woman who's in the perimenopausal phase. Menopause is technically a day, but we'll say menopause and postmenopause. It's not uncommon for them to go to the doctor and the doctor say, hey, blood sugar levels are a little out of whack, right? There's a little bit of a dysregulation with insulin response, et cetera, and that can also be attributed to perimenopause or the menopause spectrum. So we've got muscle leaving, harder to put on muscle, and we've got some dysregulation of blood sugar levels. So one of the things that helps with all three of those things is protein. Specifically getting protein, and I'll go backwards the other way, specifically getting protein throughout the day, in addition to fiber, that helps regulate blood sugar. Also helps regulate hunger. So protein becomes important throughout the day. In terms of the fact that they have a little bit harder time absorbing protein from the foods they eat, we recommend a slightly higher dose of protein, and there's a range, and it depends on what expert you prefer to listen to, but it can go anywhere from one gram of protein per ideal pound of body weight, and sometimes more, and then there's timing to consider. But in any case, so you need a little bit more protein than probably you're used to ingesting, because it takes a little bit more to make the same amount of muscle that your body used to be able to create. So we advise getting protein throughout the day for that reason, right? Just to make sure that we support those that uptake. And then the third reason, which was the first thing that I said, was the loss of muscle, right? You want to make sure that you're able to maintain that muscle. And if you're going to be strength training, you need to support the strength training with protein throughout the day, because you've got to get more of it in a day than probably what you've been used to. I have so many clients that tell me when we talk about the amounts of protein that we want to get in the course of the day, oh, that's a lot. That's so much. I can't get all of that protein. Well, you can if you start at breakfast and you go throughout the day, evenly distributing the protein. So let's look at what I just said and then add in intermittent fasting. If you've got a fasting window in the first part of your day, well, how do you get enough protein, right? If you got a fasting window in the middle of your day, maybe. Well, how do you make sure you get protein all day long, consistently, knowing that protein is going to help, protein and fiber, is going to help regulate your blood sugar, right? And it's going to help regulate cravings during the course of the day. If you've got a fasting window at some part in the middle of the day, then how are you going to make sure that you're supporting those muscles and getting protein doses steadily enough to counteract what perimenopause is probably doing to your body, which is increasing the rate at which you're likely, unless otherwise attenuated, and absorbing enough protein from the foods you eat to make more muscle. So intermittent fasting disrupts that. Second reason for me why I don't think intermittent fasting is a good idea for midlife active women. And the second reason is because you need to be properly fueled to drive the intensity of the workout that you're going to do. Another thing that we know biologically about the menopause transition is that it has an effect, the withdrawing of estrogen, it has an effect on your muscle in a different way. We talk about actin and myosin and how they pair and are initiated by estrogen to give yourself a good, intense muscle contraction. And as the estrogen starts to withdraw, it becomes increasingly difficult to generate good, intense muscle contractions when you're lifting weights. So we talk a lot about ratcheting up the intensity of your lift, particularly your big lifts, things like a deadlift, a chest press, a squat, your compound movements in the course of your exercise. We talk about increasing the intensity for those exercises, but we also talk about things like short bursts of high intensity cardiovascular conditioning, whether it's high intensity interval training, where you're going at 80% or so of your maximum heart rate for 30 seconds to a minute, or whether it's sprint interval training, which is great for women in the menopausal spectrum to help reduce visceral fat, to help maintain muscle mass, and sort of sets off a change of like epigenetic responses that are really beneficial, like insulin sensitivity, etc. But we're looking at those short burst, high intense cardio sessions, sprint interval training. You go as hard or as fast as you can, say on a bike for 15 or 20 seconds. And then you could either do it like Tabata style, where you have a short rest period and you go right back to it, or you can do a longer rest period. But the main thing to consider is you're driving a lot more intensity into your workouts now than you probably used to in the past. If you've got a menopause informed coach, this is probably how they're coaching you based on the science as we understand it today. So you've got these intense, maybe shorter, but very intense, hard driving workouts that you need energy for. Why would you deny yourself fuel during the time of day where you need the most energy to drive through those intense workouts? It's not a match made in heaven here. It's probably going to lead you to down regulating the intensity of your workout. And because of how differently the body might adapt now in the menopause spectrum, you may not be able to generate the results that you'd like to see when you're underfueled and your exercise lacks a certain level of intensity. Because we're all about the intensity at this point in your biological life, in your hormonal life. We need that intensity to get those great muscle contractions that were easier before estrogen started to withdraw or fluctuate. We need the short burst intensity in your cardiovascular conditioning to create sort of those epigenetic changes to help with the visceral fat, the dangerous kind of fat that's intra-organ fat. It's not stuff that you can pinch, but we need those things to happen in an effort for you to get the type of adaptation that you want to the exercise you're dedicating yourself to. I have so many women that I get to work with in this spectrum who tell me the same thing, literally say, I have to do 3 times as much to get a third of the results that I used to get. And that's a very real anecdotal experience, but it's partially because of the misunderstanding of what actually will drive the adaptation that you want, the change that you want. And in this case, it's intensity. So it doesn't make sense to not fuel during the course of the day when you know you've got to make your way into an intense training session. You're almost guaranteed to underperform. That's the second reason why I do not like intermittent fasting for midlife active women, for women in the menopause spectrum who are active. I don't like it for that reason also. The third thing about intermittent fasting that I don't like is there's a tendency for women in midlife, women in general, to experience something called LEA, low energy availability. And essentially all it means is that for the things that you're asking your body to do, performance-wise, exercise-wise, training-wise, competition-wise, you're not giving it enough fuel to perform in the way that it needs to. And low energy availability can lead to things like sleep disruption, concurrent nagging injuries because you're underfueled. Of course, fatigue, that's a no-brainer. Random bouts of sickness, you keep catching colds, you keep getting the flu, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all a function of low energy availability. And the other thing that can happen with that is further compromising your muscle and or bone. So we want to stay out of a low energy availability state. So many women in the midlife spectrum, in the menopause spectrum, they're finding that what they used to do, the way that they used to work out, the way that they used to eat, it isn't working quite the same way as it used to. And because of that, what we see often is they double down on it, right? If working out 3 times a week isn't getting me the results I want, I need to work out 6. If cutting back to 1,700 calories isn't giving me the results I want, I need to cut back to 1,500, and on and on and on. And this continues a cycle of disappointing results and the resultant doubling down again of the methodology. So because of that, so many women will drive hard into their exercise and barely fuel for the exercise that they're doing. Also barely fueling throughout the day. I had a client ask me the other day, is it okay for me to eat as much as on non-exercise days as I do on exercise days? Absolutely. Because on non-exercise days, your body needs to repair and recover. There's still performance happening of some sort. So the idea of concept of throwing in intermittent fasting, where we're creating this window where there's no feeding or fueling, it feeds right into the same behaviors that often lead to low energy availability. And we don't want that, because we don't want you injured. We don't want you consistently sick. We don't want your sleep disrupted any more than it's already disrupted. We definitely don't want any more bone loss because you're underfueled and probably bone fractures. And we also don't want any less muscle in your body. We don't want you losing muscle due to low energy availability. And it's so common in this population because, again, most of the active women along this spectrum had a set plan that used to work. And that plan was rooted in move more, eat less. So now in the menopause spectrum, when that's not working, becomes move, eat less. And then that doesn't work, it backfires. And the next plan becomes, well, move more, eat less. And because of low energy availability, that continues to backfire and compound almost to the point where they want to pull calories to nothing and work out like a bat out of hell 8 days a week, 36 hours a day. That's not possible. So that's the third reason why I don't like intermittent fasting specifically for active strength training, cycling, cardiovascular, exercising women in the menopause spectrum. It adds a level of stress to a system that is not as resilient to stress as it used to be. By system, I mean the woman. And it invites behaviors that are going to continue to backfire. The last thing I'll say is, if you really want to have a fasting window, right? A period of time where you don't eat, why not deploy more of a time-restricted eating methodology? What I mean by that is that in the evening, you cut off your feeding, because there's already a fast worked into every human's life. It's called sleep. So, for instance, let's say you wake up early in the mornings, right? And you go to sleep at 8:30 or 9, right? Let's put 2 hours in between the last meal and the time that you go to sleep, which may actually aid your sleep. Let's put 2 hours in between it. So let's say this person goes to bed at 9 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, it's the last meal. They're not going to eat anymore after 7. Now, this will only work if you've been eating throughout the day, right? You need to fuel all day long for this to work. Otherwise, you're going to raid the snack pantry at 7:15. But at 7, you cut off your feeding, right? So 7 to 8, 8 to 9, you don't eat. 9, you go to sleep. So 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. You've got 10 hours of fasting. Let's say you get up later. You get up at 6, right? You've got 11 hours of fasting during a time where it's probably aiding your sleep, probably helping you recover well from the day, but also you're fasting when you don't need the calories for the hard charging activity. It's a much better plan. And I mean, realistically, you could cut it off more than that. You could do 13 hours if you want to go 4 hours in the evening without having something to eat. That's a long stretch. I wouldn't advise it. But time restricted eating, you just shut down the kitchen a couple of hours before you're about to go to sleep. And that way, when you're fasting, you also don't necessarily need the energy for any performance. So that when you wake up, you begin feeding again, and you're ensuring that you're being more helpful in maintaining your muscle that's at risk. You're more able to maintain your bone density, which is also at risk. You're more able to drive intensity into your exercise routine, into your training, which is now fundamental because of the withdrawal of estrogen and the effect that it previously had on your muscles. And you're less likely to induce stress, additional stress, during the course of the day when most of your life stress presents itself. It's just a smarter play, because we don't want the stress of fasting added on to the stress of life, the stress of the menopause transition. People fast for different reasons. I am in no way in this video talking about fasting for religious purposes, right? Fasting for social issues. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about intermittent fasting as a methodology usually used to control food intake. By the way, almost every bit of research we see on intermittent fasting versus other methodologies of calorie control, they end up at the same place. There's nothing magical about the methodology itself. It's just a different way for you to control how much you consume, if that's something that you're interested in doing. Also, there's very little research on menopausal women and intermittent fasting. It's sort of born out of male-dominated research. But in any case, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Hope this was helpful for you. If you caught this on replay, thank you. I got to pay the bills one time because I'm currently enrolling 5 women over 40 who want to build the healthiest relationship with their body, build the healthiest version of your body, and do that without calorie restriction or counting macronutrients or weighing or measuring food. That sounds like you. DM me the word live, L-I-V-E. I'll know that you saw me here. We'll have a chat about the program and we'll see if it might be a good fit for you. Enrollment ends on Sunday. Orientation week starts Monday, July 1st. Let's keep it simple. All right, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, whatever you call yourself today, and YouTube.